September 19th meeting?
I have none.
None, they stand approved as presented. First item on the agenda, discussion of city primary election ballot. Chief Deputy Recorder Chuban.
It's on there.
You gotta push the button. You should, there you go.
Hello, Chair Bickle. I hope that you all received a letter last week we forwarded to the Elections Department that I felt like this letter to the Republican National Committee was a good summary of how we are answering questions around a data error that happened in the City of Tucson primary election. I also forwarded along the Pima County Attorney's memo to the court that I think also addresses some of the concerns about the lawsuit that was brought by one of the candidates. So hopefully you've had a chance to read that. I can give you a summary of what occurred in July and answer any questions about it. So in July, typically when we send a data file to the City of Tucson, because they administer their own elections usually, although not right now for the general. It gets very confusing when we switch things up like this, but typically the City of Tucson manages their own elections, and we're like a vendor, and we provide a data file to them, and we provide, they contract us. We have an intergovernmental agreement to perform signature verification for them. We sent a data file to the City of Tucson, their first data file to send to their printer. Those ballots were mailed out to the voters that were eligible at the time, all eligible voters for the primary election in the City of Tucson in the wards that were affected. Then typically what we do is we send a supplemental file of any changes that have happened in voter registrations, people who have provided documentary proof of residence or citizenship, and therefore they're now eligible to vote in a municipal election. And so that supplemental file had, I think it was around, I don't have the numbers memorized, I apologize, but it's all documented here. But there were around 150 voters that received the wrong ballot. So the ballot that was assigned to them was the wrong ballot style. And so just a little bit of background on what was happening, what has been happening this year because of the CD7 primary election, which was a special election to replace Representative Raul Grijalva. It overlapped with another election. The entire state and those who have voters who live in CD7 were really struggling with how to make sure that we're going to close what we call books closed on any registration changes beyond what's allowed for the CD7 election, but keep eligibility for those who would be participating and there are like seven counties that are having municipal elections. So a primary and then a general. And so the counties that are on the AVID system, the voter registration database for the 13 counties, besides us and Maricopa, had a solution that we weren't comfortable with, which was creating duplicate records. We decided to try to create a table that was outside of the voter registration database and sort of store those records that were changed. It's very complicated. that were changed during the Congressional District 7 election and needed to not be pushed to the system, but should be allowed to be pushed to the system for the primary election. And unfortunately, there was an error in the code, and it was assigning the wrong party to some of those records. So what exactly happened is it wouldn't clear the last party. And so it looked like there were a bunch of people, parties in time to be able to vote for the election. It was discovered by the city of Tucson. The moment we found out about it, we started meeting with them and trying to identify and narrow down. It started out as like 1,200 voters that we thought may have received the wrong ballot, but it turns out that there were a lot less. And so as soon as we found out about that, we consulted with attorneys, with the Secretary of State, and the decision was made to not resend the ballots because there wouldn't have been time to do that. And so we called every single one of those voters. The city of Tucson and our department collaborated on a letter that was mailed to all of those voters. So every single voter got a letter, and we called every single voter, trying at least twice. And some people we didn't have contact information for, but our staff is used to that. When it comes to ballot curing, we find household members and we call them and let them know. It looks like you live, so our staff, this voter, and we're trying to cure their signature. So our staff spent the next 3 full days calling every single one of those voters. The election, unfortunately, for those who were involved was very close between 2 primary candidates, and we were sued by one of those candidates. The county was sued as well as the city. We went to court and successfully showed that no voter was disenfranchised. Voters still had the option to vote in person. Witnesses were given those options even all the witnesses that were brought to the lawsuit admitted that they had those options. It took the judge about 30 seconds to make his decision. And so while, you know, our department is really committed to accuracy in the data that we send. One of the things that we've implemented since this happened is having voter data, multiple eyes on any kind of voter data that's being sent. And so if it's specific voter data and it's going to trigger a ballot, it's going through a second audit process, and it's, especially if it's new. If it's just the regular thing that we always do, that's automated mostly. But if it's something that's new, we are going through an additional audit process that includes 2 developers. And so, this is something that was really unfortunate, and as I said, we're really committed to making sure that data is accurate. It was a human mistake in a complicated process. So that's the gist of what occurred. There's a lot more detail in here. Some of the concerns that were brought up was, well, did this change people's records? It did not. The little table that had the voters that were on hold, their parties, it's called parties on hold, were separate from the voter database. None of their records were impacted. We checked multiple times. I mean, we knew logically that couldn't have happened, but when someone asked, we look, and nobody's record had been changed. Interestingly, when we looked through, I just looked through all the voters, And I think only like 5% of that list of voters had ever voted before and had been registered and had never returned a ballot. And so I think, you know, the majority of them, thankfully, were voters that don't vote often. And so we're pretty confident that, you know, we did everything we could to reach out to these voters, give them their options, give them an opportunity to vote, and they had several days to show up and vote at one of the voting locations. So I think that's it.
So in a nutshell, it's kind of safe to say that the primary initiator of the problem was the special election
Correct.
and the overlap with the city municipal election.
Correct.
And by statute, the special election had to be held
Correct.
before a certain date or time.
Yes.
So it wasn't, can we slide them so that they both are held on the same day?
Yes.
That option was not there.
Correct.
All right.
Yes.
So,
Separate.
Commissioner Stewart.
so I think you addressed very aggressively and thoroughly, and my concern got it solved. Congratulations. Then the concern is, could it have been bigger than the relatively small error that we saw this time?
I think the only way it could have been bigger is if more people made changes to their voter registration record in that short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose, you know, it could always have been bigger.
But not dramatically so,
It wouldn't.
based
I
on
don't
how
believe so.
often or how rarely people change their data.
Yeah, the data that would trigger like a change that we have to hold on to. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. People can change their addresses up until, you know,
Yeah.
the end of the election. But from the 29 days out, there are certain things that they can't change.
Okay, good job.
Thank you.
Commissioner Smith.
You started out by saying typically, the city of Tucson manages this election, and I'd like to just hear what you would finish that with. Because my city of Tucson ballot did come from the recorder's office, so typically it would have come from city of Tucson.
So what happened for this general election is there are three school districts that are holding contests. They're bond and override elections. And when that happens, those would typically be, those elections would be administered by Pima County. They would be all mail elections. If they're not going to be on a consolidated election in an even numbered year where we're doing a statewide or a countywide election, then typically what is decided, because it's good for voters, is to consolidate those elections. And the organization that can consolidate those elections happens to be ours. It's the recorder's office. And so what happens is an IGA, an intergovernmental agreement, gets amended to include a consolidated election. And so the recorder's office is administering the election that includes the City of Tucson general election and the 3 school district elections.
Thank you.
Commissioner Strigel.
Deputy Recorder, a couple of questions. You mentioned that other counties that were involved in the special election decided to do the database and extract the information.
They would go back. So the duplicate was to create the duplicate record, and then they would go back and, so the duplicate record would be eligible for the municipal election. Then they would go and they would merge those 2 records, which is common. That happens in their registration database. It's not, we're much more agile than they are in terms of like we can create procedures. And so our developer chose to do that.
Was there a discussion for that decision given? You're implying, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, that the other counties duplicated records and your developer appears to come up with a, I'll say, a more elegant way of creating the list of the records. Was that reviewed by supervision, or was that just a developer decision?
Oh, no, that was my decision.
Okay.
I
and
believe
again-
Maricopa did something similar to what we did as well.
Okay, so, I mean, a group decision and reviewed by supervision is a good thing. And I understand that the special elections was, I'll say, the trigger that highlighted I'll say, accommodating an overlapping election is probably not easy in your world. The script that was running, and I'm assuming it was an SQL script of some kind extracting the data, why was, or did you get to a root cause of why the party data was corrupted, changed, or mismanaged in the output?
We did. I couldn't explain it to you because I don't understand it, but it has been, that particular procedure has been tabled. If a situation like this comes up again, there would be elements of it that would be used, but it would be debugged to make sure that the party isn't changed, because what it did was it sort of spit out a result of, it looked at the current party, it looked at the on-hold party, and it didn't zero out a party when it was going through the records. And so it was sort of random the way it did it. Some of the voters just got a duplicate of the same party that they belong to, so they just got 2 ballots. And just in case anyone's concerned, we have lots of checks and balances in place that people cannot vote 2 ballots. People often request a second ballot and return one. But the actual root cause is something that the developer is very clear about. It's not something that I can explain. But that procedure will not be used in its current form again.
So was this a new procedure for the situation you found yourself into? So
Yes.
it was developed, this implemented solution that you used was developed this year to
Yes.
support this
Yes.
intersecting election problem?
Correct. And the last time this happened, I think, was 2015, and none of us were here then. And one of the things that we've really been focusing on over the last 5 years that the reporter and I have been in this office is documentation of procedures. We didn't have an IT manager prior to 2022. We had one developer in charge of our voter application. He's a senior developer. We now have a junior developer that we recruited as a intermittent election aide. While he was going to college, we just sent a message to our aides and said, does anybody want to be a temp worker and learn some, real life application? And we did. We got this amazing person who's creating small procedures that has already kind of revolutionized the way we're doing other work because he has the capacity. And so, there hasn't been a lot of documentation in our office. They're working on documentation, change management procedures being documented, as well as strictly adhered to. It was really unfortunate, but it was, in the grand scheme of things, it was a really big wake-up call for our developers, and the ability to put in a rigorous change management was kind of a gift.
Final question. I have a software development background for almost a decade. Given that you have a small staff, do you have, I'll say, do some kind of outside review with peer reviews of comparable experience to make sure that a software error is a bug? Because you got a 50-50 chance of introducing a bug every time you fix a bug.
Right.
Is the statistic.
Yes.
So is there, as part of your change management and review process, getting an outside expert to kind of take a look at the changes, particularly if they're major?
The outside experts looking at the changes is a little tricky when we have, when we're talking about election coding. I think that our developers, we meet with every 2 weeks, we meet with the developers of the statewide vote for the database, and we meet with the developers for the Maricopa County Recorder's Office, which are now under Maricopa County every 2 weeks and not under the Recorder's Office. But we continue to meet every 2 weeks to make sure that the databases are interfacing. I know that we have utilized some of the Maricopa, they have a much larger development team, and we've utilized some of their code before. They've shared some of their procedures with us. It is an opportunity to always check in with them, but the bottom line is that this was not thoroughly tested.
Okay, so I would make a suggestion. Consider using maybe the state, experts out of the state as part of your formal review process for changes versus trying to do things in isolation. Having been there and made mistakes in my own code, I understand the issue. Managers that don't easy software background to miss subtlety whereas if you have experienced level coders as part of your review process, you're less likely to have bugs persist into the final product. So I suggest you consider adding a peer review process for major updates or major drops.
Did any of the other counties involved in the CD7 election have a municipal election overlay, or?
Yes.
All
Maricopa did, I believe, I think Pinal did. I think it was Pinal and Maricopa. But we had the bulk of the
I was going to
voters.
say, both of them are itty bitty overlays.
Yeah, very little. Santa Cruz had a few. But yeah, it was, we have the bulk of the CD7 voters, so. Yeah.
Anything else?
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart.
I'd like to echo Commissioner Strahla's environment comments on for communicating about issues, but you actually need second eyes or more on the code and on the testing process, and
Yes.
I think that's critical.
Item on the agenda is election security. Next was kind of an open discussion question regarding election security, and this was kind of an open-ended question to let people come up with issues that maybe can make our elections better or more secure, or we're as secure as we can get and there's nothing else we can do to fix any problems because we haven't had the problems yet. One question I have for Chief Deputy Recorder Chuban and Director Hargrove, have either one or both of you moved?
I'm sorry?
Have either one or both of you, not you personally, but the organization?
No,
have you
she's
moved?
still in our neighborhood.
Yes, I live a block away.
But I was listening to somebody speak the other day, and they flat out said, the recorder's office has moved.
No,
And I
it's
didn't-
an announcement that went out from Pima County Communications. There was something about the wording that people assumed that our office was moving to a new facility, our downtown office. And what's actually happening is we had, I think I spoke about this at another meeting, we leased a building across from where our current ballot processing facility county share with the elections department. At the same time, the county, another facility became available, and because of space issues that both of our departments are currently having, it was suggested that we consider moving to this other facility on Drexel. and we're moving forward with that. But that will, it will house the elections department, their office and permanent staff, but for us, it'll just be replacing our ballot processing facility. We'll continue to be at 240 North Stone for our regular permanent staff, the bulk of our permanent staff, and then we have our satellite office at Broadway and Kolb for recording and research.
So wherever you end up, you're still both gonna be in the same building.
Chair Bickle, yes, that would be correct. Yes, we're going to be in the same building.
Okay. Eliminates a lot of,
But
Yes.
I would, Chair Bickle, that as far as elections, it's probably not going to be before 2027, before we move.
and the recorder's gonna move. When? Or have you moved?
No, we haven't moved. The building, the bids are still coming in on
Okay.
the work for the building. There's a goal to have it done by May, so that we can do our primary election there. We're running out of space. We don't have enough seats for signature verification. We don't have space for our staging of equipment for our sites. Currently, we're using a facility that the facilities management is loaning us to store our early voting site equipment and materials. Prior to that, we were using the elections department warehouse, and I don't know if anyone has seen the operations at the elections department warehouse, gearing up to deliver to 130 or so vote centers. But we were in the way, and they were very gracious, and you know, it but the needs that we had for these special elections that we weren't expecting. But it's not an ongoing solution.
So there will be at least one election where ballots are physically gonna have to be transported from one location to another.
I don't believe so. That's a major concern for us. Yeah,
It's a concern for a lot of people.
yeah, it's a major concern for us.
So either you're not moving in May or you're moving before 2027.
No. The elections department will not be moving
Yeah.
before the
Yeah.
general election next year.
Yeah, one of the contingencies is that we just utilize a portion of the space for the staging that we need, and a place to store our equipment. But it's still all up in the air. Like I said, the bids are coming in. There are often delays in construction. We're planning for all contingencies.
Okay. Questions from Commissioner Stewart?
With regard to the vulnerabilities, this was suggested by me in response to a discussion on whether or not the commission still serves a valuable purpose, and that is, you know, just making sure that we have our eyes on all of the processes, and you know, that we're thinking sometimes a little bit paranoid about the vulnerabilities and how they can be addressed. I actually don't. I have concerns in a couple of areas, but I want to think about them a little bit further and do a little bit more research before I bring them forward. But this will be kind of an ongoing, you know, list of things that we can bring up and decide, you know, okay, that is remotely possible, or that's pretty likely, or no, we've got that absolutely covered. Or we could solve that problem with potentially 5 votes for $1 million. Do you really want to do that? You know, things like that.
Yeah, this wasn't in any way meant to say we have problems. I think we're pretty tight. compared to a lot of places I've seen, so. Does that mean we can't be tighter? No, but you may have to look a little harder to tighten up a little bit more, but, no, thank you for your comments. Anybody got anything else? Okay, moving to the final agenda item. Mr. Wisely.
Good morning. This is a discussion on the DS 950.
Primarily, by the upgrade, what are we gonna get out of our this 950s that we don't get out of the 850s? Are there issues that, and I know the ballot path is being handled differently in the 950 than it is in the 850. Why they, that kind of thing that I'm interested in is the, why ES&S decided to make that change.
We got our first DS 850 in about 2018, 2013. So there have been some advancements in technology. But they're very similar devices. The interface is almost identical. So if we were running a 950 and an 850 at the same time, an operator could move between the two machines with very little changes in procedure. So, similar devices, but internally, the electronics, the process is somewhat quicker in the 950s. I don't have that specifics for you. It's some of the ports are different. It has fewer ports, but we never used all of them, the USB ports. And one of them is upgraded to be a faster port. Just checking my notes to see the internal upgrades. They changed the type of sensor they use to monitor the ballot path. The 850 has essentially two sensors. They have an infrared emitter and then infrared sensor, so that as a paper cut comes through, it blocks the light and you know where the paper is in the path at that point. They now are using it all underneath. The light is emitted from underneath and the sensor is right there next to it, so that it's the reflected light as opposed to the block light that indicates the paper's location. That eliminates a piece of hardware and takes it out of the paper path. It's now underneath. The cameras, they're a different camera, very similar. I don't have a lot of specifics on it. It was just talking to a service tech. I think the camera in the 950 is now going to be the camera they use to replace in any of the 850s, because the camera that was originally used is no longer being made. I'm not sure the vendor is still there. So those are like the back-end processing part of it. It should be able to process the ballot quicker. One change they made to the paper path, which so the mechanical end of it is, they slowed down the motors a little bit, because when the paper leaves the camera, before it gets to that first diverter to put it in one of the output bins, the processor has already noted, is this ballot blank? Well, first, what ballot style it is it blank? Are there any overvotes? Are there any unclear marks? Does it have any problems with the ballot? And then it can divert it to the proper bin. By slowing it down a little bit, it gives a little more time to do that. And then in the output bins, it's able to say that diverter didn't move it quick enough, or we were late in making that decision because all check marks and they were trying to calculate how many of those were unclear marks. If the decision was made late and they realized it went into the wrong bin, they can then stop any subsequent ballots, but there may be 3 left in that path. So they each would go to their proper bin, and then they now have LEDs that would say, this bin has a ballot that's wrong. So they'll count the correct bin, and you can rerun only that one. I'm not sure we want to quite go there yet until we test it, but that's an option that they provide in this model. If it said something went to a wrong bin, you pull them all out and run them all again so you know everything goes to the correct bin. So this was one of the changes they offer with the 950. Additionally, with, I think the track's a little smaller, but they made modifications to the paper path or the ballot path so that before it relied on the paper laying flat to easily go through things, but at some major junction they give a little up on the lip so that if it's up a little bit, it has an easier chance of going through, so probability for less jamming. Some of my knowledge is theoretical because we haven't had an opportunity to run these, nor have we had an opportunity to run it in a real environment with folded ballot and flat ballots. So once we actually see how well that works, they're also changed the way the guides should go through to hold that paper far against that wall so you don't get it slightly turning. The image capture has software to square it, but if the flat is turned too much, it can't accommodate it, and the flatter it is, the less the processor has to do. So they've made a number of changes to that path. Also, when if there is a jam, you pull the machine, got the guards off, you just see more the machine with it so that easier chance of unjamming the machine without tearing the ballot. In theory, again, we haven't practiced that because maybe there was a problem out of the way. Then in the output bin, in the 850, the idea was you launch that ballot out of those last set of rollers so that it has enough speed to hit the backstop and back up a little bit. That works really well for flat ballots. For folded ballot, it works pretty well. But depending on where the folds is, it wants to bend a little more. The 950 now has 2 additional guards that help force it down. The idea is when you come out of those last rollers, you're floating above it and land. This is now floating you above the edge so you don't hit the back of it and jam. You float over and then you immediately lay flat. So we'll see, they have essentially a little plastic diverter on the back end to help force it down, and then the way they measure how many ballots are in that bin so they can stop it if it gets full is there's a long bar, and as that end of that bar comes up, a sensor on the back tells you the level of ballots in there. They've added an additional plastic part on that to help kick the ballot to the bottom. So they should lay flatter quicker, and there should be less jamming due to problems in the output bin. But again, we'll see. They also are trying to anticipate moving to the voluntary voter, I'm forgetting what S is, guidelines, to the VBSG 2. And some of that is, the hardware will be compliant. some of the software upgrades they'll need to do in a future release, because I think each device is required to do exports in certain formats, or more broadly usable formats like CSV and Excel and those kind of things where you can actually look at the data functionally. Software, that's not the only, right now in the current software versions, the only exports you can do are in electionware proprietary software, or their zipped files. So to become more compliant, that would have to be a future software upgrade. They've also added a card reader. Oh, sorry.
I can add to the non-technical part of it. He's talking about now. So the 950s are 2.0 ready, and as soon as it is has gone through the testing and been approved, it can be upgraded to that software version. The 850s cannot be upgraded to 2.0, so they are quickly becoming obsolete anyway. So they're ready, but with 6500, of course, it is not at 2.0 because that's not been approved by the EAC and has not gone through the testing labs for approval, but they're ready for the upgrade. And just so you know, the express votes that go to cannot the next rated to 2.0. So we would have to go to the next version of express votes if we're required to go to 2.0.
And if I'm not mistaken, there's nobody doing something that's 2.0 compliant at this point in time.
Chair Bickle, I think there is a company that went through the testing, but I'm not sure who. I don't think anyone in Arizona is running it.
No, nobody's using it actively. Okay.
One other component that makes it would help move to 2.0 is it has an additional card reader so that you can do two-factor authentication, so that you have a piece of hardware you have to put into the device before you can log in, which the 850 does not have.
Okay. The express votes are relatively new. They're significantly newer than the 850s.
Chair Bickle, true, we have ordered some recently, so we have quite a few that we purchased within the last couple of years. The 850s and the express votes, they've been around about the same length of time, but they're different versions. They've been upgraded, so there are different versions of the software on express votes, and we do have some that will be obsolete really, really quickly because it's like one or something like that anyway. But yeah, it's just that I guess when they were developing them, they could not put in enough of the software. It didn't have the capacity to be upgraded.
But we are keeping two of the 850s, is that correct?
Chair Bickle, yes, that is correct. We're keeping two of the 850s.
Commissioner Strable?
Yes, is there any cost to us or the county to upgrade to the 2.0 standard, or is that going to be just better supplied, or do you know?
I believe it's probably going to be a cost. If they are going through the entire testing, that is very expensive, and so there will be, I'm sure, some cost to upgrade.
I'll get to you in a minute, Commissioner Stewart. The last time we did a significant software upgrade, when the ES&S people were out here doing it, they had a very nice propaganda package about the machine. Do we have anything like that on the 950 yet? That tells us why it's so great and wonderful and it's worth the expense of upgrading?
Did you see my comment?
I do have a one-sheeter comparing the two.
Would you give that to Vanessa and let her email it to the, or do we have it in there?
I think we have.
Okay, we got it, good. And when anything else comes available, would you make that available to the commissioners, please?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
Chairman, I believe you're referring to the press packet that they
Yes.
put together?
Yes.
The press packet, David.
Commissioner Stewart?
I really like two-factor authentication. You know, in a small enough operation, you can argue that you don't really need it. In the kind of circles that I have to work in on data transfer, I have to do a two-person integrity well on data transfers. And we recently got a requirement from the government integrity that every, say, that two-person integrity process that ultimately impacts, say, a classified machine, you know, completely outside of what we're doing, has to be witnessed by an appropriate person. So if I'm just downloading an antivirus disk on my unclassified desktop computer, I have to have somebody witness that, verify that I've done a scan on it, verify that it's been finalized, and then verify all the steps in putting it into the classified system. I never had to have a witness to do this part, but when I think about it, it makes sense, because that's where the malware or mistakes could get introduced, either deliberately or accidentally, and that step was never required to be witnessed before. So why do I bring it up? I don't know. Do we have any processes already existing where we require two-person integrity for things like that, and maybe start thinking about the potential for a requirement coming down at some point? Because I'm watching all the cybersecurity requirements just definitely increase over time.
Yes, we require two people to do anything when with the EMS, definitely. There's at least two, usually three, so that if one needs to step out of the room. So that's for any programming or that kind of thing. We have, as well as programming or making any changes to our tabulators.
Does that include patching? Software patches?
Software patches is a completely different thing. We have the vendor come in to do a software upgrade, and that has to first be an upgrade approved by the Secretary of State's office. If they do a software upgrade, we have at least two people in the room with the vendor, and then we run a hash scripting test on to make sure that what was installed was actually the certified version of the software we're paying for. So in the counting room, no one is ever in there by themselves,
Yeah.
generally speaking. If you forgot your phone, somebody may watch from the window as you go grab your phone.
Yeah.
Any actual work in there, no one is ever in there by themselves. When we're programming the accessible devices, there's usually a whole team in the room doing several at once. You clear the machine and load it, and then we test to make sure that the actual election was loaded on that device.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Stradlow?
Mr. Wisely, in the cybersecurity and classified DoD world, there are requirements to have software logs and maintenance hardware maintenance logs per machine. Do we have that yet, or something similar?
Maintenance logs and, well.
For any maintenance that's performed, any changes to hardware, say any can be auto maintenance done, security specialists.
Yeah.
it approaches election integrity that might be worth considering.
There are electronic logs that record everything you do on the devices. The DS-850 has a physical hard copy of every command that you give it. Is printed on an old dot matrix printer that prints for every tabulator. That is not in with the 950. You lose that hard copy record, but it still has the internal record where every command given is electronically kept. We do, and maybe I've been a little lax on it, but we have a physical maintenance log that whenever we go in to do work, on it, we're supposed to record on it. I should also do it when we do basic maintenance, like cleaning all the wheels and that kind of stuff. So it's never a good idea to remember you should. But we have a physical log of some of the things we do, but all of the devices automatically keep electronic logs.
Right. I'm pushing on when the machine is powered off for servicing and maintenance, that is not automatically captured, so it should be in some kind of paper log.
Yeah, and the servers, you turn them off, they ask you before it lets you, is this regular maintenance or what is your reason? When you turn it back on, it asks. So it keeps a log. Whenever we also have opened our signature log that we opened it, we sign that. We initial it.
Do you do the same for
it and two people sign
these now?
Do you do
I need to the DS-850s now?
I have a book. I need to be better at it.
Look at.
I have a book. I have a book for each device.
Okay. Make sure that it's capturing all activities on your machine from I'll say election integrity and security perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Is my recommendation.
Yeah,
to look at.
and these requirements aren't just for classified systems. They're anything that handles certain categories of government data that even unclassified. So
Thank you.
I know just enough to be dangerous, though, or more precisely, I know just enough to be expensive.
One last difference with the 950 is their cost. Cabinets lock, where the 850s, the cabinet it sits on is essentially open. So a nod to physical security. I'm not sure how much difference that'll make.
So if I understand you correct, that big pile of paper that comes off the dot matrix printer is not going to be there anymore?
Correct.
Good.
Aw.
I mean, we can print a log because we will have a printer, but it's
Well,
not like automatically printed.
I can remember when we went to the vote centers and the ballot on demand printers, and somebody wondered why we weren't going to do them on dot matrix printers, because nobody makes dot matrix printers anymore. Very few people do. I think Oki was the last one, and I don't know that they're still in business.
They're in business, but not selling to the U.S. And Lexmark and Brother have taken over Oki's niche of election service. That is one other difference. The 950 uses a Brother printer, where a report printer, where the 850 had two Oki's, a report and that log printer.
Any other comments, questions, suggestions? Thank you, David. Appreciate it. Anybody have any specific items they'd like on future agenda? Commissioner Cinnamon.
Yeah, I am admittedly new commissioner, and I'm not sure if this is the purview of this commission, but I know we've talked, agenda item 5B, we talked about election security, and it's dealing with ballots and the counting of ballots. But what about security of the voters and the election and recorder department workers. Is that something that this commission wants to look into with the idea of maybe preventing problems? Is that in the purview of this commission?
Depends on where you're talking about doing it. If it's early voting or ballot verification.
Just in general,
Yeah.
have a discussion, as I understand our the role. So this to recommend things to the Board of Supervisors. So this might be an area where we could provide value in preventing problems from possibly occurring.
If you'll put that in a short
agenda item?
Agenda item.
Okay, I'll work on it.
Send it to Vanessa.
Will do.
And I just ask a clarifying question. So you're talking about things like violence at polling places or voter intimidation, all of which could affect election integrity because of voter suppression or
Yes,
things like
exactly.
that. Okay.
Anybody else?
I do.
Commissioner Smith?
Some months ago, we had a very good explanation of why we were moving to a one envelope. I still call them absentee ballots, but, and those have been implemented, and I saw recently a little blip in the Tucson Sentinel, which I didn't read it quite as thoroughly as I should have, but, that there have been some people complaining, and I'm not taking it one side or the other. I just would like, after the election is all over, to see what your thoughts are in general about those, how that worked out. So.
Okay. Anything else? Don't be bashful. All right, next meeting is scheduled for November 21st. Are we going to have the election all finished by then for the most part? So you guys can be here.
Yes, Chair, we should be able to be here. We canvass prior to that.
Okay. All right. So the next meeting will be November 21st, and I believe that's the Friday before Thanksgiving, if I'm not mistaken. So we won't be stuffed yet for the next meeting. All right. Any further business? Hearing none, this meeting stands adjourned. Thank you all very much. You made it a whole hour, Vanessa.